The scientific community scrambles to find a drug that can cure patients stricken by the new coronavirus. What treatments are in the pipeline? We'll find out right after this break. Welcome back. You're still watching World Insight. In regards to treating the coronavirus, new pharmaceutical drugs are listed alongside 1,000-year-old traditional Chinese remedies. For instance, clinical trials of this drug have begun in early February. Over 750 patients have been enrolled in the trials conducted in several hospitals in Wuhan. This drug has shown good antiviral activity against the SARS and MERS in cell and animal experiments. However, will they work this time? Meanwhile, there are other drugs that are being tested so far. According to China's State Intellectual Property Office, results of this specific drug's effectiveness in the COVID-19 clinical trials will be released on April the 27th. In the pursuit of curing the COVID-19, where are we now? How do scientists view the latest drug test? Earlier, I talked to Sheng, Dean and Bayer Distinguished Professor of the School of Pharmaceutical Sciences at Tsinghua University. He's also the Institute Director of the Global Health Drug Discovery Institute. Let's listen in to his voice, the real people in the know. I know you and your colleagues have been working around the clock in order to find the remedies to the current novel coronavirus. But let me ask you about the latest development of looking for a potential remedy. Where are we now, according to your latest information?
Certainly from the early sequencing study, what we know is really this novel coronavirus. It's actually similar to what previously had been found and studied. For example, SARS and MERS. From actually those previous studies, what we have been really doing, and also what many other scientists around the world actually have been doing, is really to apply this so-called drug repurposing approach to find a new treatment, a potential treatment for this novel new coronavirus. The drug repurposing is basically looking through actually what people have previously developed for treating other diseases to find potential therapeutics that can be effective actually against this new coronavirus.
This is already jumping from, let's just say, animal test to immediate human test, and from not available in the market drug to now already in the clinical trials, testing on the real people at a time of crisis. How should we understand both the academic aspect and also the moral aspect of this? Have we thought about some of the other issues that also could be related to this if it did not work out as we wished?
What we heard about is really there's, for example, there's this compassionate use of this drug actually that has not been approved for any diseases called Remdesivir, developed by Gilead previously for treating Ebola virus. Certainly, this is a drug candidate that pretty much failed actually in clinical trials, in Ebola virus clinical trials. But again, given its in vitro and also animal model data, it was suggested actually this molecule, this drug actually even not approved for treating any disease actually have some activities against very similar coronaviruses. But again, the compassionate use, this specific category of using unapproved drug for treating human diseases, actually, it's quite narrow. As you point out, actually, for a drug without knowing actually its full safety and efficacy data, and putting that into use in a broader actually range could be actually quite problematic. So it's always in this current situation, it would be really a balance of considering potential drugs efficacy as well as its safety profile.
Yeah. Professor Ding, as you may know, at this moment, for various reasons, some for specific good reasons, others for more tendency of commercial reasons, and others probably even for what some consider could be bad reasons, in order to promote certain drugs or the advocacy of certain drugs or kinds of treatment these days at a time of crisis. This is understandable because things like this happen any time when a crisis like this happens. But how to avoid researchers, academics like you, and those on the front line not being influenced or impacted in their decisions about what to use, what to research about by all of these noises in the society?
I think to really actually avoid or actually to manage such a situation, it's really to provide especially for authority bodies, to really provide the public and also our medical personnel very specific information and also transparent, open information to really tell the facts. But also on the drug utility or approval process, certainly that has to really involve the regulatory agency.
Right.
Our regulatory agency also worked around the clock to really assess those different applications as well as actually put forward actually certain guidelines and regulations in terms of actually reviewing, evaluating, and also approval of those potential treatment, as well as actually diagnostic kits.
Plasma therapy or pharmaceutical treatment. Doctors and scientists are debating which is more sustainable solution now when we face COVID-19 threats. According to the Ministry of Science and Technology from China, plasma therapy has proven effective on several cases of COVID-19, but with only just over 100 recovered patients donating plasma, the plasma supply is very limited. So which approach is the most cost-effective in the long run? And in the pursuit of improving access to new drugs and vaccines, how can we balance innovation with intellectual property rights protection? Let's listen to Professor Ding's answers. How should we compare the drugs that are being tested and developed vis-a-vis plasma, which is another thing, another front line it seems that people are enthusiastic about. Professor Ding, how would you compare these two roads? Which one would reach Rome first?
I would say if we can find a drug, either small molecule or neutralizing antibody, those actually can be, if we found such drug that is efficacious and safe enough, that can be applied massively to treat, all the patients or many patients fast. However, the plasma from recovering patients, in principle, some of them may have actually neutralizing antibody against the coronavirus. If the antibody actually concentration is high enough, certainly the plasma actually can be efficacious in terms of treating this disease. But the problem with that is the source is actually very limited, and also that process actually is not completely defined. Again, each recovering patient, they may have a different level of neutralizing antibody, and also different neutralizing antibody, and also their plasma serum actually need to be processed to actually make sure actually those are safe, those not contain other pathogens or other identified sort of cytokines, harmful cytokines or other molecules.
So it seems that to me, if you use an analogy, Professor Ding, you're suggesting a plasma type of treatment can be firefighters for a small-scale fire, particularly for those who are extremely burned or injured. However, to treat patients on the front line with such a large number, you still have to rely on therapeutical treatment, eventually related to drugs that needs to come out. Is that what you're trying to say?
I think that's largely correct. Certainly for treating a large population of patients having effective small molecule or antibody actually is very much essential. But also the plasma for a very small scale treatment, I think it's possible. But again, the plasma from each individual is actually not identical. It's different.
Yes.
So actually filtering or selecting plasma actually from actually qualifying, selecting actually therapeutic plasma actually is very limited.
Professor Ding, as you may know, this has a lot to do with the latest development about the drugs and the direction of drugs. It also has to do with the genome sequence, which you mentioned earlier. So how should we make sure that the IPR is not going to be a stumbling block against developing new drugs and make them available to the people that are in crisis, but rather a good momentum for people to research about? This is a very delicate balance. Tell us more about that. This is very important.
In terms of actually getting this virus genome sequence, identifying potential drug targets actually for this novel coronavirus, that actually shouldn't be much a concern. In general, drug targets were naturally existing matters are not patentable. So in that sense, actually, this coronavirus genome or specific targets actually for this coronavirus, it's not really patentable.
I see.
So those knowledge, those information actually would be actually would be actually really early stage of research. That can be actually knowing those information and releasing those information typically would actually accelerate drug discovery and development.
But would people, but would the researcher be able to discover that specific target, for example, usually willing to come to the public and release the information, or they would rather hold it back for their own use?
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is really for a very early stage of research, those information can be made publicly available very fast, very soon, and that can accelerate actually drug discovery. But downstream of those early information, in terms of one molecule, what specific molecule, man-made molecule actually can target those viral drug targets, we're actually using a specific fragment of those viral sequences for developing vaccine. Those actually information or those knowledge, new knowledge, would be patentable. And again, I think in general, people will not really have a big concern in that regards. Basically, there are many ways actually for each, let's say for each target, there will be many ways actually to develop a molecule. What people would do is really people patent that first, and then actually release such information later on. But also for particularly in this case, this is epidemic viral outbreak. This is a public health, global health issue. For this type of disease, actually, what people have done in the industry in the past is really the patents actually can be granted to actually country or to a certain situation where actually the drug is in need, and actually people would not actually really make very much a commercial return actually on such drug development. Certainly, that international collaboration or partnership actually have previously been done. Certainly, I personally think actually this can also be actually done in this case. So I would say actually at this stage, properly, timely releasing all those information and also exercise typical practice is important, but also actually promoting international mutual trust and the collaboration actually is essential to really accelerate the drug discovery and development.
Professor Sheng from Tsinghua University, stay with us. We'll be back after this. The world is changing fast, taking all our lives with it. But we can change it too, by seeking answers to problems through discussions and debates. On World Insight, I ask direct questions to real people in the know, seek genuine answers, but respect diverse perspectives. Our live global debates tackle the most critical issues head-on. World Insight with Tian Wei go beyond the headlines. Welcome back. You're still watching World Insight with me, Tian Wei. There is no known cure, as we all know, right now for COVID-19. And doctors are eager to help those infected, but scientists caution that only carefully conducted trials will determine which measures work. What have clinical experiments revealed? Are there any drugs or vaccines on the horizon? We also asked that question to another expert from China, and particularly the issue whether Chinese traditional medicine help in curing patients. Earlier, I spoke to Shao Yiming, chief expert on AIDS at China Center for Disease Control and Prevention, otherwise known as China CDC. He's also vice president of Chinese Society of Microbiology. Mr. Shao, what do you make of the current stage of vaccines? Vaccines, are they coming from China or vaccines that are coming from international collaboration? Dr. Shao.
For coronavirus, why we do not yet have a vaccine, there's one main reason is that because in the early times, the coronavirus is just caused mild common cold, so do not trigger the industry to manufacture the vaccine against that. And the last time, like 16, 17 years ago, we have SARS. There are already efforts for vaccine development, including my group. We use the HIV vaccine platform. We also manufactured a vaccine. We finished the animal trial. Because that epidemic has been cleared, fully controlled, so there's not commercial interest. Often, if you don't have a commercial interest, things don't move on. Money talks. But I think at this time, the whole society of China and the scientific community have got a heavy lessons. We could not to look at only the commercial values to decide to move on or not move on. I am pretty determined, pretty much knowing that this time the vaccine will continue. Also, traditional vaccine takes, like WHO said, like 18 months. For some new technology vaccine, like nucleic acid vaccine, either RNA or DNA, it can be faster. So we already saw there are scientific group and the companies, both in China and in US, they have a plan to go to the RNA vaccine first, to animal trial. But there are also uncertainties for this new technology. New technology means also high risk because they have not been tested before. So we still have to wait and see. But anyway, I think the efforts will continue. If the vaccine cannot be used in this epidemic, it will certainly in a vaccine very fast ready for the next epidemic.
Mr. Shao, let me also ask you about the debate that we've been seeing in China playing out, which is the debate between whether we should use Western medicine or the Chinese medicine. What are likely to be the roles that these two different branches of medicine in terms of treating the patients and also in terms of seeking solutions? Mr. Shao, that debate happened also during SARS. That debate happened during various public health crises. What do you make of it now, Mr. Shao?
Traditional medicine can play certain rules there and to maintain the balance of our immune system. But that it's just, in theory. But if which traditional medicine really can help, it has to do the clinical trial. Have to test. Everything has to be, no matter Western medicine or traditional medicine, has to be evidence-based.
Yes, it needs to be evidence-based, particularly at this point. But Mr. Shao, as you may know, the Chinese medicine or traditional medicine, one of the difficult parts for the rest of the world to understand and also to make it be able to confirm its position in the world has a lot to do with it's difficult for the clinical trial because it's supposed to, the portion, for example, and the different elements being used in the one recipe are varied according to every person it attends to. So it seems that we do not necessarily, during a crisis time, likely to have any result, at least regarding the traditional medicine, isn't it, Mr. Shao?
I mean, the theory of treatment is different of these two medicines. The Western medicine, you have to find the target, the drug target, and then you look for a drug to can hit that target. So that is their theory. Then in that system, you need a pure compound. We are specific to that target to be considered as a drug. But in traditional medicine, the theory is how to maintain our body's balance. Any disease do not need one specific pathogen. It's just out of the balance. So how to adjust back the balance of our body, for example, in this case, the immune system. You need a recipe which is according to the traditional medicine theory, yin and yang, and how to, what is the balance? Is the yin too weak or the yang too strong? So they can adjust back the balance. So that balance not necessarily need just one compound. They can be several. Maybe you have to tune the both yin and yang at the same time. So I think the two theories both are useful. It could learn from each other, especially for this disease. It's not just the virus caused; it's the immune system out of balance. Right. I think you antiviral and you adjust the immune system balance at the same time. It can have a win-win situation.
Another thing, Dr. Shao, is the debate about so-called the patient number zero, meaning who were or who was the original patient infected by this virus. I know you've been talking to different groups about the debates about this. Tell me more about your assessment and why it matters.
I think that is the source of the new infection. We can get direct information from the patient data. How this virus jumped from animal to human. So what is animal or animal groups who carry this new virus can infect human. So that is why the patient data is very important for us to know the origin of the disease, the target of the transmitter, and then we can do precise intervention to block the virus from animal to human, and also a second is that the patient's data they transmit he or she transmits virus to other patients, and so that is how to know the what we call the hotspot of this new epidemic. Are they single one or are they several? So these are the critical questions. But oftentimes you find not the patient 0, but the patient 1 or patient 2, which is equally important. And then you should already trigger the prevention campaign. You don't need to waiting for the patient 0. This is what China did at this time. In many countries, epidemic prevention is done like that.
Professor Sheng Yiming from China CDC. That's all we have for today. If you'd like to see more, try to find us on YouTube and also our Twitter and Facebook account. From me, Tian Wei, and everyone on the team, thanks for watching.